we probably will start and finish the book of Haggai. Only 2 chapters, but don't let that take away from, he's called a minor prophet, and the same thing that we've been saying, he's the 10th one we've looked at, but that doesn't mean they're minor in importance. It means simply they don't have as much written as, say, Isaiah or Ezekiel or Jeremiah. But this Haggai is the first of what's called exilic, and it's a fancy term that they like to use, the exilic prophets, or the prophets that come onto the scene after coming out of Babylonian captivity, or the exodus out of Babylonian captivity. So, as we've been talking about, many of the prophecies we've been looking at were concerning them going into Babylonian captivity. This is the first of 3 prophets that are actually during the time of that coming out of Babylonian captivity and even going into rebuilding Jerusalem. And tonight we'll talk a little bit about, and what Haggai is about, is rebuilding the temple, the house of God in particular. But it goes along with rebuilding Jerusalem. So Haggai is written around the time of the first Exodus. Sometimes I have to refer to my notes. But in 538 BC was the first of 3 waves coming out of Babylonian captivity. So in 538 BC it was under Zerubbabel, his leadership, bringing them out. And then during the time of Ezra was the second wave in 458 BC. And then finally in 445 BC under Nehemiah. So Ezra, Nehemiah, and the book of Esther actually is good background for Haggai if you want to have some books to just go through, during the study companions. It's always good to have companion books to go along with your study. Like if you've ever studied the book of Hebrews, it really comes to life if you're going along in Leviticus during that time. Same kind of way here with Haggai, because in Ezra we learn about the time in which these prophecies concerning the rebuilding of the temple take place. There are 4 major prophecies in this book. I'll give them to you right up front. There's the pronouncement against apathy toward the temple of God, or plainly put, the people of God not caring, not tending to the temple of God, or the house of God. Second point, the prophecy will predict the glory of the temple that will be rebuilt. And many of them thought it wouldn't. Many of them thought it was impossible. We're going to talk about the opposition that they get. But the glory of the temple, and we're talking about Zerubbabel's temple, not Solomon's temple. So that's prophecy number 2. The third prophecy that this little book is going to show us is a promise of blessings for those helping in building the temple, and those who are called, really, to rebuild the temple. So a promise of blessings for building the temple. And finally, Haggai prophesies choosing Zerubbabel to lead the people of God during this time. So Haggai is a pretty important book in telling us and letting us know during this time the exodus out of Babylon and the captivity. And we have the timing, which again, this just points out that during the time of them coming out of Babylonian captivity, in the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josedek, or Zadok, the priest, the high priest, saying, verse 2, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, This people say, The time is not come. The time is not now that the Lord's house should be built. Well, then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, It is time. Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your own sealed houses or paneled houses? And that this house, the house of the Lord, lie waste, or literally lying there in ruins? And I love this. He's going to say this a couple times. Verse 5, Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, Consider your ways. Ye have sown much, and bring in little. You eat, but you have not enough. You drink, but you are not filled with wine, with drink. You clothe yourselves, but there is no warmth. And he that earns wages, he earns wages to put it into a bag with holes. You get it? Okay. I like Haggai, like the straightforwardness. Even a child can understand these things. Working all day, earning everything to just put it into a bag with holes. That is, you're losing all of this that you're storing up. Verse 7 goes on. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Consider your ways. There it is again. That was almost going to be the title of tonight. Consider your ways. Go up to the mountain and bring wood. Build a house, and I will take pleasure in it. I will be glorified, saith the Lord. Ye looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when ye brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is a waste, and ye run every man to your own house. What the Lord is getting at is you're all about your own stuff. Your own possessions, your own house has become priority number one. And it has not been the house of the Lord. Now I'm preaching to the choir tonight because you guys are here on a Sunday night. And you're concerned with the house of the Lord. But how much time do you spend concerned with your own house? Making sure those things are in order, clean, or whatever. The house of God gets neglected. And there's a bigger application here, more application than, and we're going to see the danger. It's the same for us, getting our eyes on the physical. But what is the house of God? What is the temple today? It's your body, it's me, it's you. Yeah, we are the temple of God. Before you get too harsh on them, remember that. And keep that in mind as we go through this. Therefore, verse 10 goes on, Haggai 1:10, and I called for a drought, verse 10, Therefore the heaven over you is stayed from dew, and the earth is stayed from her fruit. And I called for a drought upon the land, and upon the mountains, and upon the corn, and upon the new wine, and upon the oil, and upon that which the ground brings forth, and upon men and cattle, and upon the labors of the hands, any work of your hands. I put a cease to it. I stopped it. Verse 12, But then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, the son of Zadok, the high priest, with all the remnant, about 50,000, by the way, all the remnant of the people obeyed the voice of the Lord their God, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him. And I love this, I underlined this in my Bible, the end of verse 12. And the people did fear before the Lord. They had spent a lot of time fearing the Babylonians. And you would have too if you'd have been there. We talked about how brutal, how incredibly harmful. I mean, that's to put it so lightly. Savage, skinning people alive, and the torture. You would be feared. It strikes fear in any of our hearts if we really study and look at the Babylonians and the Assyrians too. But now the people have come to the place, the end of verse 12 is worth noting. The people did fear before the Lord. Well, then spake Haggai, the Lord's messenger, in the Lord's message unto the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. And the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, the son of Zadok, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and they did the work in the house of the Lord of hosts, their God, in the 24th day. In other words, 24 days. They got this done. Of the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius the king. So, here in chapter 1, again, we're learning at the time that they came out finally of Babylonian captivity, again about 538 BC, the people were not united the way they were before. The people were not believing God in all that He had sent and all that He had said. That's why He sent Haggai. That's why He always has a prophet, if you will. And I mean that before Jesus came as the prophet. Be leery of any who claim today to be prophets. Many are out there. We don't need them so much now that Jesus has come in the flesh. We had the prophet. But this prophet was sent during the time he was sent on God's behalf. And so, he's being used of God, Haggai is, during a time that he would think, the people aren't going to listen. No one's going to care. They're going to be excited to come out of Babylonian captivity. But the issue was decreed. They could go back and rebuild now the house of God. Now, there was a problem. In fact, why were they at all in the first place put in this place of Babylonian captivity? Pop quiz. Why was it God had them sent into Babylonian captivity at all? Leviticus chapter 25, the first 7 verses. In Leviticus 25, 1 through 7, we learn of something called the sabbatical year. It's always blown my mind. God came up with this. This is God in leading His people, Israel, at the time. In Leviticus 25, you can read about it. Work and plow the fields for 6 years. Do your harvesting, go to work, digging. That's hard work that they did. But on the 7th year, imagine, let the land just lie there, dormant. Don't do anything to it. In fact, you guys take the year off. And out of everything God called them to do, they didn't do that. For 490 years, they failed to keep that. And God's a good mathematician. He keeps math well. Because it turns out how long they were in Babylonian captivity to let that land finally lay there, dormant. and have their Sabbath year, because they were off into Babylonian captivity. How long? 70 years. Perfectly outlining, God is just. He's perfect. You take out that guy's right eye, your right eye gets taken out. Man is not like that. Man's justice is, you give me a black eye, I'm gouging out both of your eyes. And somehow that's fair. That's just. Man goes extreme. God is perfect. And there's something about that sabbatical year, them being taken into captivity, it's what the scripture calls exacting justice. Only God can do that. One day we'll all be around the throne room of God and we'll say, righteous and true are your judgments. I'm so glad I didn't take it into my own hands. I'm so glad it's not left to some judge in a courtroom on the Supreme Justice Court. Are you kidding me? We will be baffled by what we thought was justice here on this earth now. That's why Paul would later write in Romans chapter 12, verse 19, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Don't take things into your own hands. Watch out, because God alone is perfect. So that's the reason they were in this mess to begin with. But now they're coming out, finally. And as they come out, there was a problem, according to Ezra. Again, a little background. The Samaritans, to put it briefly, the Samaritans heard about them building the temple again, because the temple was just totally ruined. It was completely in rubble. And the Samaritans wanted to help out. And they came to Zerubbabel. They said, can we help in any way? And Zerubbabel, that legalistic jerk, he said, no, this is for the Jews. This is God's calling on his people. It's all here in Ezra, in the book of Ezra. And so that was the problem. That was the halt. Because then the Samaritans, rather than just saying, okay, you're right, we're wrong, and going their way, imagine that. They didn't do that. They hindered the work from happening, the construction of the temple from even happening, for about 16 years. When God would have them do this work, and I'm sure, they tried over and over again. They tried to make it happen, this construction of the temple. But what they thought was going to be people helping out actually hindered and made the work. It delayed the work that much longer. 16 years around there. So, by the way, I meant to mention this. There were 3 huge empires that we've looked at thus far, and we've talked about. We've talked about 2 of them so far. We haven't talked much about this one, that during the time Haggai writes, and the next 2 that we'll look at, Zechariah and Malachi, we're going to look at these same prophets that are in this same group of exilic during the time of coming out of exile, of the Babylonian exile, coming out of Babylonian captivity. That these prophets prophesied during a time of this huge empire that we've looked at the Assyrian Empire already. They were used to bring them into captivity. And then the Babylonian Empire we've looked at. Those are the 2 major empires that we've looked at thus far. What comes onto the scene, we talked a little bit when we were in Daniel, we talked about the Medo-Persian Empire. That's who Darius, who's mentioned in our story here in Haggai, well, in the prophecy, not a story, it's a prophecy. But Darius, or Cyrus, is another name. The king of Persia. The king of that whole area. And the Medo-Persians, the Medes and the Persians, would overthrow Babylon. Do what seemed impossible. And it was Darius, the king, Cyrus, who would come along and give them the okay. Zerubbabel, his name means sown in Babylon. Or we would say he was born in Babylon. During the time that the Israelites were there in Babylonian captivity, Zerubbabel was a product of that. He is linked, the reason Zerubbabel's special is he's linked to David, King David. He's in the tribe of Judah. And Shealtiel, great name by the way. You can link him to King David. So Zerubbabel is chosen by God simply because God does the choosing. But he's in the line of David. Joshua, this is not the Joshua that we've looked at, has his own book. But Joshua's name is "The Lord is Salvation." He is in the line of Zadok, the high priest. And God is using here the royal line as well as the priestly line to bring his people back, to re-establish them and use them to rebuild the temple. But that's why you had the complaint. That's why you had people kicking against it. I know this is back and way up now, but verse 2. Haggai 1 verse 2. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, saying this people. He doesn't say, notice there, my people. He's saying this people say, the time has not come. Hold off. Remember I mentioned the Samaritans hindered the work. They stopped the construction. And the people saw that and said in their hearts, now's not the time. You know what? Now's not the time to rebuild the house of God. It's just not the right time. Let's wait on God's timing. We can do the same thing. The littlest sign of opposition, the smallest bit of enemy attack, which will come, by the way, we can fold our hands and say, you know what? I give up. I gave in. Now's not the time. I can't imagine. But that's what they came to. That's where they were at. That's the apathy towards building the house of God. It's just not the right time. Things aren't lining up. Obviously, God's not in this. The doors aren't opening. All of those kinds of things, they happen today. And so God is going to use Zerubbabel, he's going to use Joshua to kick these people into gear. One of the first things we read and should note is verse 7 there. Actually, it's in verse 5 and it's in verse 7. Consider your ways. We would say in our day, look at what you've been doing. How's that working out for you? Are you further today than you were 2 years ago? What have you been doing? Consider your ways. God, this is just something God does in his character, in his nature. He says, stop and think about what you've been doing. Well, I've been working. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. Stop and consider your ways. And it's a healthy, we need to reflect on what the Lord's doing, how the Lord might be using us. Because, again, we can come to that place like they were. You know, it's just not the time, Lord. I'm sorry. Use someone else. Do it with something else. But the problem, one of the main reasons they said all that, and they would go that far, and one of the reasons I think God is saying, consider your ways, is they were so selfish. Their priorities. In fact, the way that it's worded, go up to the mountain, bring, no, that's not it. It's in verse 4. Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses? In other words, that's a old King James way of saying your nice, luxurious houses. You didn't have sealed houses back at the time that this is written. But he's saying, you guys have a place, and it's good for you, but look at the temple. Remember, it's the opposite of how David felt. King David, he said, how can I be in this great palace, this luxurious place, knowing God is out there in that box? Now we know God didn't dwell inside the ark. We know that wasn't all of God there in the ark. That's what the Philistines thought. But David, it's the opposite here. Where the people would love. Any one of these guys would take the place of David and just kind of walk through their palaces and just love life, man. Who cares the way that God's house is treated? Looks like rubble. Looks like a junkyard. Because it did. It was a lot of work to clean that up. It's a lot of work to get something going. In fact, now's not the time. Let's just... Don't think about it right now. It's not the time. So, he's going to use these guys to kick them into gear. And finally, like I said, the people feared God. But the reason I titled the message, The Lord Stirs Up, Zerubbabel didn't. And Joshua didn't. Now we're going to read how Zerubbabel was used of God and the words he said in chapter 2. If I'll ever shut up and get there, we'll see. But we'll see how God uses them, but it's God who stirs their heart. You don't go and get a hireling and get them out there building the temple. They had Samaritans right there willing. Boy, we'll do it. You don't do that. But you fear God and what He's called you to do. And you wait on the Lord. So, the Lord is the one that stirs up their spirit. So, verse 1 of chapter 2. In the 7th month, in the 21st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by the prophet Haggai, saying, Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of that guy, Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Zadok, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, Who is left among you that saw this house in her first glory? And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison of it as nothing? Yet now, here's some faithful words from Zerubbabel, their young leader here. Yet now, verse 4, Be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Zadok, the high priest, and be strong, all ye people of the land, saith the Lord, and work, for I am with you, saith the Lord of hosts, according to the word that I covenanted or promised to you when you came out of Egypt. So my spirit remains among you. Fear ye not. Powerful words from the Lord. Actually, not coming out of Zadok. Keep wanting to call Zerubbabel Zadok. That's not it. Zerubbabel is hearing this from the Lord. It's a word for him. Be strong, O Zerubbabel. Joshua is also hearing. Be strong. And the end of verse 5. Fear not. We need to hear that. We need to hear that. Over and over again. We'll come back to that. But thus saith the Lord of hosts, Yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. I will shake all the nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. other words, this will be a temple again. Glorious. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith the Lord God of hosts. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, saith the Lord of hosts. And in the place I will give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. Now in the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ask now the priests concerning the law, and say, If one bears holy meat, holy flesh, in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And the priest answered, No. Well then, said Haggai, If one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priest answered and said, It shall be unclean. Well then answered Haggai and said, So is this people, and so is this nation before me, saith the Lord. And so is every work of their hands, that which they offer there is unclean. Verse 15, And now I pray you, consider from this day and upward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of the Lord, since those days were when one came to a heap of 20 measures, there were but 10. When one came to the priest, the press fact, to draw out 50 vessels out of the press, there were but 20. I smote you with blastings, and with mildew, and with hail, in all the labors of your hands. Yet ye turned not to me, saith the Lord. Consider now from this day and upward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, even from the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Consider it. Is the seed yet in the barn? Yea, as yet the vine and the fig tree and the pomegranate and the olive tree hath not brought forth. From this day will I bless you. Verse 20, And again the word of the Lord came unto Haggai in the 24th day of the month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, the governor or leader of Judah, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of kingdoms, of the heathen, of the nations. And I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, will I take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith the Lord, and will make thee as a signet or a sign, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord of hosts. Again, prophesying concerning his chosen man, Zerubbabel. During this time, God will choose a leader. He anoints a leader. We talked a great deal about that this morning. But God is interested in the details. See, when we're told in Ezra chapter 3, it's an interesting scene. When they come back and they finally start making the foundation to this temple. It says, the young men rejoiced with a loud voice. Hip, hip, hooray, this is incredible. They rejoiced in joy. They were joyful in the Lord, the young men. But in the same writing right there, it says, and the old men wailed and cried and mourned. And it tells us in Ezra chapter 3, for their eyes had seen the glory of Solomon's temple. So they're there comparing, and that's why God indicts them through Haggai. He says, when you look and see this, the foundation, and all the young men are saying, yippee, this is incredible. The Lord has brought us out of captivity. And you're comparing it to Solomon's temple, which, by the way, he spared no expense. I mean, Solomon's temple was incredible in glory. Incredible in expenses. Possibly the most expensive structure ever on the planet was Solomon's temple that he put up and that they destroyed. This would really look pathetic next to it. Yet God is prophesying through Haggai, the glory of this temple is far greater than Solomon and all his glory. And shame on all those old guys crying and wailing as the foundation is being laid, saying in their hearts, it's just not like the good old days. Just not like it used to be. God must have changed. No. If you're not feeling it, if you're not into it, who moved? Not God. If I don't believe in Him as much as I did when I first came to Him, who moved? If I don't feel the presence of the Lord like I used to, who moved? Because the Word of God is clear. He never moves. He is solid. In fact, the most sure, perfect foundation that could ever be laid is the rock. That is Christ. The solid rock on which we stand. All other ground is shifting sand, including human opinion, human minds, human emotions. People will be right behind you. They'll be cheering you on one day. Ask Paul the Apostle. Ask anyone in, well, all the heroes of the Bible. Think of Job. Always scratch your head and you wonder. The devil took his kids, took his cattle, and the devil is wise. He left his wife. And Job's wife looked at Job and said, curse God and die. That's why Satan left her there. Because that got under him. See, people will come against you. They're going to oppose you. It may be your own wife or husband. It may be your own best friend, whatever it may be. But listen, you keep your eyes on God. You take heart into what Joshua, the high priest during the time here, and Zerubbabel was told, and they needed to hear. I am with you, saith the Lord. Do you really need anyone else? I'll say and add to that. I'm with you. Jesus said, I'll be with you to the end of the age. For some reason, we think that Jesus said, I am with you most of the time. We think or act in some ways, He only is with me, He only sees me and watches over me sometimes. But no, that's not what the Bible teaches. It's not what Jesus said. I am with you to the end of the age, always. If that's not enough, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. In fact, he's quoting from Joshua when he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, saith the Lord. See, we read these phrases like I said, the underline in Haggai chapter 1, the end of verse 12. Haggai chapter 1, verse 12. I told you to underline, the people did fear before the Lord. What does that mean? That they just kind of shook in their boots and they just kind of, their knees were knocking? No, they took note that God's presence was real. He's here. In fact, He's always with you, wherever you go. The Lord thy God is with you wherever you go. Do you know that? Because if we know that, I think we would do a lot more damage. The Lord your God is with you when you walk out that door. Used to have a sign on the exit of the church. At one of the places, I don't know, we've been 20 different places in the last 30 years. But used to have a sign that says, "You are now entering the mission field." That's a good reminder. Because we need to go out there understanding, you know what? We have the head of the universe, the leader, the creator of all things with us. Not just with you. He's in you, and he's telling you, he's asking, I don't know about you, he asks me all the time, what are you afraid of? In fact, not what, but who? Who are you afraid of? Because that's the devil. He desires that we fear him, or that we fear man. Proverbs, very clear. Proverbs says, the fear of man brings a trap, a snare, and it comes in many different ways. I'm so thankful for his word. See, when we really, when you stop and look at these times, I think the only thing worth taking note of, at least, there's a lot more of it to it, but we just learned that this all happens, the building of the temple, them actually coming together and hearing and being a part of the work of God. It's during the 7th month of Tishri, which is October, and it's what we call the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles. The only feast, by the way, that we will continue to celebrate for all of eternity, folks. We'll get there soon enough. It's in Zechariah. We learned that we will not only go up in the rapture, be in the kingdom of God, in his kingdom, come again to this earth, rule and reign. We will go to a temple. We read about this and talked about this quite a bit in Ezekiel. The millennial temple. And we will celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. What does the Feast of Tabernacles celebrate? The Feast of Tabernacles is remembering, more than remembering, it's celebrating God's protection and provision during the wilderness journey, where their feet, the shoes did not wear out, they did not tire or grow weary, their clothes somehow miraculously did not wear out. God provides and he protects. And that's not mentioned here for no reason. No, it's with that understanding. How can you not serve him? How can you not start building him his house? When you understand he has provided all this time. He has continued to protect all this time from so much. That's why we enter into his courts with praise and thanksgiving. We understand, you know what? He's given so much to me. We simply respond to him. We talked about in Zephaniah, right? He sings over us. He rejoices over us with singing. It's actually a perfect verse for Mother's Day. I didn't put that together till afterwards, but it really is. That's what Mom does. She rocks you to sleep and she sings. She's rejoicing over you with singing. God is the same. God makes mothers the way they are. He's the designer of it. In the same way here, he's rejoicing, the people rather, in this festival, Feast of Tabernacles. They're celebrating and remembering, God, you've provided this for us. In fact, you've protected us. Talk about protection from those Babylonian savages. All those years, 70 years in Babylonian captivity, the Lord protected them. And I'll ask you, do you celebrate that God has protected you and that he's preserved you? Philippians chapter 4. I got to turn there. Oh, the Spirit's doing something. Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. Again and again, write this stuff down. Memorize it. You listening, boy? But my God shall supply some of your needs. No, it doesn't say that. But my God shall supply, Philippians 4:19. Did I already give you that? Okay. Philippians 4:19. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. And you might make a note there, it's need and not want. God does supply all your need according to his riches in his glory. When is the last time we've rejoiced in that? That's what the Feast of Tabernacles, by the way, is all about. It's just rejoicing and celebrating. God, you've taken care of me. Lord, you're the greatest Father there ever was. You're so good. You're so patient. But he doesn't leave Haggai. Haggai does not leave us without a lesson. Did you pick up on the hypothetical there? Say you're walking down with meat that's been made holy, consecrated, dedicated to the Lord. And that was just what they did, the priests. They would dedicate this meat, this thing to the Lord. Sometimes it was fruit, grain, offerings, whatever it was, dedicated to the Lord, made holy, and it brushed up against you on the way up to the altar. Would you then be made holy? No, the priest said no, correctly. No. Okay, you're carrying something holy, and you happen to brush up against a dead body. Does that then contaminate you? And the priest correctly said yes. In other words, righteousness, holiness, godliness is not contagious. Sin, death, is contagious. I'm sorry. It's the sad truth. You want proof? I can remember being in Bible college thinking I was going to get these incredible lessons, right? I paid good money to get all this really good information. And the teacher brings up a clean glass of water. And he's got a vial of dirt. Puts that clean glass of water, takes a little dropper, and drops it in that little vial of dirt. Says, what do you guys see? Is that clean water doing anything to that dirt? No, it's actually making it muddier. It's just kind of... But then he switches it. Takes a drop of that dirt, that little bit of mud, drops it in the clean water, right? What does it do then? Pollutes the whole thing. That's what Haggai is getting at. In a nutshell. I wish it was the other way around. Where, man, I've been great all week. I'm singing to the Lord with all my heart. I've memorized scripture. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to brush up someone and they're going to become a Christian. How many of you know it's not like that? It'd be nice, wouldn't it? But you're singing all week, worshiping the Lord in Bible study, and you go to the movie theater. Uh-oh. Within minutes, I'm sure, you'll be corrupted. You'll have something that rubbed up against you and polluted you. Without even trying, without even knowing, without even thinking it. You don't even have to go to the movie theater. You guys know. You can turn on the TV. Look at your phone. You can drive down the street. It's all around us. Sin is contagious. But it's the Lord who stirs up the heart. You could put restrictions on everything. You could make things legal, make things illegal. It's not going to change anything. What is the Lord ultimately concerned with? Our heart. See, that was the problem they had, the old guys. there in Ezra chapter 3. Ooh, we're kind of moping about the foundation being laid. This is nothing like Solomon and all his glory. That temple, boy. We have the same issue. What do? We start looking at the house of God rather than looking at the God of the house. We start focusing on the outward, the external. And we can even get led into, that's what it's about. This church, they have pews. They're all made of wood, overlaid with gold. It's not this church, a different church. They've got wallpaper. There's a true story of a lady coming to a Calvary Chapel. It was in Southern California. And the lady was excited. She had been invited, and the name of this church should have tipped her off. The name of this particular Calvary Chapel is Calvary Chapel, the Barn. And that's what it was at the time. It was very run down, and they had concrete floors and metal folded chairs. A lot like we have over at our property. Just kind of run down. And this lady, true story, invited to church, excited. Within the first 5 minutes coming there, said, "You don't have carpet?" Oh, and she walked out, never to be seen again. See, we can really put our eyes on the house of God instead of focusing and keeping our eyes. For me, it's you keep your eyes on the Lord of the house. Not the house of the Lord. You're not so focused on the house of the Lord. It's the Lord of the house. Because it's not about what's on the outside, is it? In fact, we get in trouble. What did Jesus say to the Pharisees who looked really good, sounded really good? He said, whitewashed tombs, sepulchres, whitewashed graves. You're dead. You clean up real well on the outside, but inside, it's cobwebs. It's bones. It's dust. It's dead. See, I rejoice because the prophecy concerning Zerubbabel's temple, which was not impressive, next to Solomon's temple, God saw it and said, "That is beautiful." You know, he looks at you, he looks at me as his temple, and he says it's beautiful. Because it's not about like we think it is. The world tells us it's about the wrinkles. It's about the acne. It's about the weight. It's about whatever the balding, the gray hairs, whatever it may be. That's what the world would have you believe. And God says over and over and over and over again, it's your inside. It's beautiful. That's what I made. That's what I'm concerned with, ultimately. It's what's on the inside. Your character. Your heart. Father, thank you that you see our hearts. Lord, just as Haggai said, Lord, it's not about the things that we might say are so holy because we've dedicated them and outwardly they look so holy. But Lord, really it's what's going on inside of our hearts, inside of us. God, that's what you're concerned with. Do we desire to draw closer, to be in your presence, or just to enjoy the Lord of the house instead of the house of the Lord? Lord, help us to be those that truly, truly come and go to church, not to get, but to give. To give praise, to give adoration, to give all honor, because it is due your name. And we just want to continue worshiping, singing in response to what we just read, Lord. May we just sing to you from our hearts.